Hello and welcome back to more First Lines, which is a series in which one of us will read the first line of the book and the other one has to decide whether they would read any further.
Once upon a time in Westphalia, in the castle of Monsieur the Baron von Thunder Ten Tronckh, there lived a young boy on whom nature had bestowed the gentlest of dispositions.
The answer is, in the best of all possible worlds, I would read on, because that is Candide by Voltaire. It's one of my favourite books.
That was very good. The possible of all worlds, yeah.
You definitely picked a good start, didn't you?
No, not the possible of all worlds. What is it?
The best of all possible worlds.
That's it. The philosophy underpinning this book.
Optimism. Yeah. We can give up now.
I'm bowled over. Job done. Well, there you go,
Job
Candide.
done. So what else have you got for me?
It seems increasingly likely that I really will undertake the expedition that has been preoccupying my imagination now for some days. What
are you doing? That's Remains of the Day.
It is Remains of the Day. This is uncanny. How did you know that?
Because I studied at a university.
I'm astounded. It's Remains of the Day.
If you picked 5 books that I've read,
yes,
you'd have more chance of picking one that I haven't read from my own bookshelves.
Oh, that is brilliant.
I will say that Remains of the Day is fantastic.
It's a great book.
I do love that book. I've only read 2 by him. The other one's Never Let Me Go. Remains of the Day is better. And I do love the beginning, but it isn't one of those grab you by the throat openings. It's a slow burner, but then the book is.
It's a gentle tone, isn't it?
Yeah.
It sets the tone for the rest of the book.
Let me ask you a question.
Go on.
Because I know this is like a book video.
Yeah.
But what did you think of the film?
I have seen it. Anthony Hopkins. I think I very much enjoyed it.
Really? Had you read the book first?
No, I'd seen the film first, then I read the book. Because then when I was reading the book, I had Anthony Hopkins in my mind. I can't remember who plays...
Emma Thompson.
Oh, was it Emma Thompson? Yeah.
Christopher Reeve. Superman. It's like the American guy that buys the house.
Oh!
I'm sure it's Christopher Reeve. I hadn't seen the film. But
Right.
even when I was reading it, I did have Anthony Hopkins in my brain anyway. It's just unavoidable.
What, from Silence of the Lambs?
Yeah. That's a very different
Brought
book.
a whole new meaning to
Cut the books in half, stick them together and see what you get.
It's the Remains of the Day.
Yeah.
Remains of the Brain. Yeah.
Remains of the Lambs. But I actually think, having read the book, when you watch the film is so incredibly one-dimensional compared to the book. It's a massive. I found it a massive disappointment.
Oh, really?
And my professor at uni was just like, "No, I absolutely love the film. Won't have a bad word said against it." But they missed out so much.
I'd have to watch it again.
So much of the story is just gone, and so that means that the characters becomes ciphers, but they're less than they are in the book. The book is, in that regard, good film, but classic book.
Yeah.
Like you're talking about a 7 out of 10 film, maybe an 8 if you're.
Yeah.
But the book is a 10.
Oh, it's a 10. I've read it a number of times as well. Yeah, but I have only seen the film.
Like little things
once.
like when Stevens is talking about, I haven't travelled, but I've seen pictures of places, and they've got nothing compared to being in England. It's like, because you haven't experienced it, you haven't seen it, and all that subtext, all those little intricate details of the book, that none of those make it as far as the film is. It is just, I found the film really boring, not boring, so just really disappointing compared to the book. It's not a bad film. It's just disappointing compared to the book.
That is probably his best book as well, I think. I've read most of his now. And
I read 2.
I've read 3.
And how do you find them?
I find Remains of the Day the best. I think, interestingly, the narrator's voice in most of them, I think, is very, very similar. There was only one criticism of Ishiguro's writing. It would be that there's not a lot of distinction between those first-person narrators.
In part, that is why I haven't read any more. Because I absolutely love Remains of the Day.
Yeah.
And Never Let Me Go is also really, really good. But so similar that I think if I read more and more and it turns out that I start to feel that the Ishiguro is like a one-trick pony, then I don't want to have the other two sort of lessen. So that's kind of in part why I haven't read any more of them. But yeah, both ones I read I really liked, and both of them have quite disappointing film adaptation.
In some ways, just to keep on topic with him, if there was a writer that I could write like, it would be him in a way. I think so. Which writer would you write like?
Dickens, for sure.
Would it be?
Yeah, or Shakespeare. I'd love to be able
Would you do a Shakespeare, would you?
Yeah. Probably Dickens, because it's more accessible and
he writes characters so well. Yeah.
And I changed all his character names because they're always awful, apart from Oliver Twist.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
I think that's what he's known for, isn't it?
Yeah, but when you drive around Portsmouth and all them towers are named like Chuzzlewit House and stuff, and
that's true.
Come on.
That is true.
Come on.
I think I'd be an amalgamation of a number of writers, actually, having said that.
But you already are.
Well, I suppose as a human being, I'm an amalgamation of everyone around me in some sense.
You're an amalgamation of everything that you've read in small or varying details. But I was definitely going with some people like Bram Stoker. Who else would you credit as inspiration on your book?
Oh, well, in the book I wrote? Yeah, Remains of the Day, narrative method, as in the storytelling, memory in the past, and that coming into prominence in the present. It's deceptively simple how he's told his story, but that's what I was trying to go for with mine.
I could see that, because your one has a similar, like the lead is a very mellow human being, not prone to peaks of emotion, but just like has this drifting narrative that becomes twisted when it bores with
I'd like to think so. Yeah,
I can see that.
I think so, mate. Yeah.
Shall we try another one that I haven't read this
one
time?
That you haven't read. Okay. The idea really came to me the day I got my false teeth.
Oh, what are you doing? I read this one as well.
No,
I'm joking. I have not read that.
I thought you did.
No, I haven't read that one. Maybe 2 years ago I'd said no.
Really?
Yeah, because I would just be like, life is precious, and I want to know that I'm going to enjoy that.
Yeah.
And I haven't got all that many hours and days left on the planet. However,
do you not get a bit of humour there? Does the humour not kind of entice you?
I don't know if you would consider that humour, but it promises. It's promising. Give me the next line.
It's either really cynical or just slightly frivolous, isn't it?
Yeah,
okay, so the next line.
I read a book. It was called The Time Waster Diaries. And it's a little bit like, what's his name, Victor Meldrew, the curmudgeon-y sort of character.
Yeah.
With far too much time on his hands. And that sort of has a similar vibe for me. But give me the next line.
Okay, it's quite short. I remember the morning well.
Keep going.
At about 7:45, I'd nipped out of bed and got into the bathroom just in time to shut the kids out.
Okay.
Bit more?
Yeah.
Okay. It was a beastly January morning with a dirty yellowish grey sky.
A beastly morning with a yellowish grey sky is starting to get a bit adjective.
Okay, this is interesting. Yeah.
I'm liking it less because now it seems like it's going to be about sort of a grumbly parent with younger kids. But I don't particularly want to read about like really young kids. I know that it might be funny or whatever, but I feel like you get that sort of level of humour about, look at my kids doing silly things from social media or something. It's like, I'm not that bothered by it.
What about just a little bit more?
Go on, a little bit more.
Okay, so down below, out of the little square of the bathroom window, I could see the 10 yards by 5 of grass, with a privet hedge round it and a bare patch in the middle that we call the back garden. Does it feel pedestrian?
Obviously, there's going to be some sort of commentary on, I assume, English life from the language. And it's just like it's losing me a little. I'd probably still read on.
Okay, a little bit more.
Yeah, go on, but not too much more
because you're not interested. Okay, there's the same back garden, same privets and same grass behind every house in Ellesmere Road. Only difference, where there are no kids, there are no bare patch in the middle. Sorry, there's no bare patch in the middle.
It hasn't completely...
It's lost you, is it?
No, it hasn't completely put me off. If I was sort of committed to reading it, I would carry on. But
do you think knowing the author would sway you one way or the other.
Do you know what probably would, was knowing how long the first chapter is?
Oh, right.
Because if you're looking at like 28 or 30 pages, I'd be like, I'm not sure I can be bothered to read 28 or 30 pages to see where this is going. It needs to get somewhere a bit quicker.
It's about 6 pages, the first chapter.
I'd probably read the first chapter from that point.
Oh, okay.
But who's it by then?
You ready?
Yeah.
Big reveal. George Orwell.
All right.
Coming up for air.
So it probably is some sort of social commentary book.
Yeah. One of his lesser known novels, probably.
It's not...
Yeah.
Not laden with sort of that exciting hook or even a particularly exciting turn of phrase that you might expect. But so you tried to sucker me with the saying, "Oh, it's a humour." Like, would I read like some sort of Douglas Adams thing about somebody's false teeth?
Yeah, maybe. I suppose.
But you were trying to trick me because it doesn't sound like a comedy at all.
I think there's those sort of sharp moments. Yeah, it's probably not a comedy. It wouldn't fit into a comedy genre. But the reason I picked it up was just for that very first line about his teeth. It's quite funny, it's quite observational, it's quite, I don't know, sort of cynical.
So I'm going to borrow this.
You certainly can.
There you go. So that's definitely a would you read on. Yes, I would.
There you go, yeah.
But George Orwell is the selling factor there, not anything else.
This will be the perfect barometer as to how much of a barbarian or not you are.
Quite a lot of a barbarian, I would have thought.
Okay, it's a prelude.
Please do.
Please do.
Let me just say that looking at the thickness of that book, I'm already out. However,
yeah, look at that. It hides my face.
Let's have a go.
To be fair, when I read this, I don't think I enjoyed any of it.
Any of the book at all?
Not massively. And it will be a book that I never, ever, ever read again. Chapter 1.
Please do.
You've got a little quote.
Tell me the quote.
Since I can do no good, because a woman reach constantly at something that is near.
Maybe I'm just tired, but that sounds like gibberish. I can't make any sense of that. So let's have the first line.
It's from The Maid's Tragedy, Beaumont and Fletcher, so it's got to be part of a play or a poem or something like that.
Maybe I just can't picture it.
Miss Brooke had that kind of beauty which seems to be thrown into relief by poor dress. That's the first line. That's got to give you a clue of the century anyway.
This is Victorian.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I feel like something that's got an arresting female presence in the book is generally worth the effort. Mm-hmm. Even in the Victorian era when it tended to be men with some pretty strange attitudes about women were writing.
It's because the women had hysteria back then.
Yeah, all of them, everyone.
Every one of them did.
Yeah,
for some bizarre reason.
And if they weren't in hysterics, they were just fainting dead away.
It's really quite appalling, isn't it?
Yeah, really is a cliche. She's the pretty girl that doesn't know she's the pretty girl. But
yeah, she's got to take her glasses off in a second.
Yeah, she's all that.
Yeah. Okay, very quickly then. Her hand and wrist were so finely formed. Her hand and wrist were so finely formed that she could wear sleeves no less bare of style than those in which the Blessed Virgin appeared to Italian painters. This is true. This is true. That's not the end of the sentence.
Oh shit! Carry on.
And her profile, as well as her stature and bearing, seemed to gain the more dignity from her plain garments, which by the side of provincial fashion gave her the impressiveness of a fine quotation from the Bible, or from one of our elder poets, in a paragraph of today's newspaper. That's your first sentence.
Your poets in today's newspapers. This is definitely dated.
It's fantastic. Yeah. The Sun, the Daily Mail.
Well, they do love a good pun or a rhyme on the cover usually,
dear.
But that is really, really bad. But it is also of its era, so it might actually turn out to be quite reasonable. In a modern book, I would read that because I think that this is like properly ironic. This is a real piss take of the daily attitudes, and that
complete parody.
And that might be good fun.
Yeah.
While at the same time, in an old book, it might just have something to say, which modern books quite often tend to lack. So
I see what you mean.
Even though it's really dreadful, I am inclined to continue. Give me more.
Okay. Okay. She was usually spoken of as being remarkably clever, but with the addition that her sister Celia had more common sense. Nevertheless, Celia wore scarcely more trimmings, and it was only to close observers that her dress differed from her sister's, and had a shade of coquetry in its arrangements, for Miss Brooke's plain dressing was due to mixed conditions, in most of which her sister shared. Can I just say that this is one of the books that would probably be held up as the apotheosis of tradition English kind of literature.
A Victorian drivel.
Victorian literature. And beyond, really, you know.
And there's 800 pages and it takes 1,000 words to say what 10
something
would do.
Would you like any more or not?
No, I feel like it's going to continue in that vein for some time.
Yeah.
And enough to fill 800 pages of it, I would have thought. I think that style would become insufferable really, really rapidly.
And that's one of the reasons I would not read probably a book by her again. I've read a couple, and they've both been very, very demanding. This is really interesting because there's a dichotomy here, because this beginning, in some ways, as you say, is quite interesting, and it might have something more profound to say than just what's on the surface. I think it's expressed very well. The dichotomy is...
Do you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think if I was a writer, well, no, I am a writer.
Let's go with if you were a good writer.
Yeah, if I was a good writer,
right.
I would like to have in my arsenal a vocabulary to pull at all these things and land them on a character. But the reason I say a dichotomy is because I think the end line, or lines, is really, really interesting and quite profound.
Of the paragraph?
No, of the book. So you've got the bookends, you've got this opening, which is as what we've been discussing, that in some senses says an awful lot about nothing at all. But the end lines is a little bit more condensed, but it seems to signify an enormous amount about society and people. So page 785. But the effect of her being on those around her was incalculably diffusive. For the growing good of the world is partly dependent on unhistoric acts, and that things are not so ill with you and me as they might have been is half owing to the number who have lived faithfully a hidden life and rest in unvisited tombs. If there was a way to end a book, regardless of what's kind of gone before it, I would like to end a book with that magnitude. From a creator's perspective, that kind of end signifies a lot about you as a writer.
But this is like the realist fascination with the everyday life, which supposedly is bringing eyes to like the working masses, if you like.
Yeah.
But it actually reads in a more modern time. It's just really condescending.
Could be conceived of, that way.
Adam Bede. Just drivel, and I'm going to break off of my narrative to lecture you on how to write.
Isn't that Jane Austen?
No, it was George Eliot. Just breaking off my narrative to say to you that I'm superior to you because I know how to write realism and you should do as I say.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's Adam Bede. It's painful and it has the same condescending.
Who wrote Adam Bede?
George Eliot.
Who wrote this?
George Eliot. I read it on Spine.
Damn it!
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, it's George Eliot.
Holy shit! You actually read Middlemarch?
Yeah, I read that for my studies. Yeah.